for our regulatory update meeting for May 2020. Today, we will regulatory updates in several countries. We have here like 9 countries. We start with Taiwan, Serbia, then we will see Sri Lanka, EU, Estonia, Tanzania, and Malaysia. So in our first country today, Taiwan, we will review 2 regulatory updates, one related to recall and disposal regulations, and this derived material. So the first update will summarize the key regulatory updates introduced in the draft amendment to Article 4 of the regulation governing the recycling and disposal in Taiwan. The announcement was published on January 29 of the public consultation comment period. So the current regulation but according to the draft explanation, the authority identified situations where imported medical devices and IVD were compliant when originally manufactured overseas, but later became non-compliant because of local activity performed in Taiwan. So this activity includes adding Chinese labels, modifying packaging, or attaching Chinese instruction for use by local manufacturer. This amendment recognizes that in some cases, the issue is not caused by the foreign manufacturer itself, but instead domestically. So what did they propose? So this here in this update, they introduced like an exception for imported medical devices and IVD. So under this Article 4 that they amended, they stated that if an imported product was legally imported into Taiwan and later labeled or packaged locally by qualified domestic manufacturer, by labeling non-compliance may be handled similarly to domestically manufactured devices. What does this mean? This means that the recalled product may potentially be corrected or reworked locally under supervision from the competent authority, instead of being automatically returned or destroyed, as was the previous cases for any foreign manufacturer. That was related to disposal in Taiwan and this new exception, but it's still be in a draft. Now for the animal tissue derived materials, here we will summarize the key regulatory points introduced by the TFDA in January of this year regarding the materials that contain raw material. So the devices that use non-viable animal tissue or animal tissue derivative either during manufacturing process. And one of the main regulatory expectations introduced in this guidance is the requirement for comprehensive risk management for animal tissue derived material. So the TFDA specifically preferences international standards such as ISO 14971 and ISO 22442. And manufacturers are expected to identify, evaluate, control, and monitor risk associated with pathogen, contaminants, immunological responses, toxicological effects, and transmissible spongiform encephalopathy or TSE risk. So the guidance provides detailed expectation regarding the information for the animal-derived raw material. This includes animal species, the geographical origin of the animals, the breeding conditions, the slaughter information, the veterinary inspection, transportation condition, and contamination control procedure. And manufacturers are expected to assess so the TFDA expects manufacturers to provide validation data confirming or demonstrating effective pathogen and virus elimination or inactivation during the manufacturing. And this guidance also states that the combined viral reduction factor should preferably be 6 log reduction. So this guidance includes dedicated management. Additional requirements apply when using material from animals associated with a potential TSE risks, especially bovine, sheep, and goat sources. And manufacturers should evaluate the BS. So the guidance provides also a detailed recommendation regarding documentation manufacturers should prepare during medical device registration submission. So the expected document may include animal source certificate, veterinary inspection records, risk analysis report, traceability documentation, process validation reports, and pathogen or TSE elimination validation studies. And the guidance also emphasizes traceability and proper control throughout the supply chain. So this was regarding this update in Taiwan. So let's see, and it will be Serbia. In Serbia, we will review also 2 different updates. The first one related to medical device registration submission, and the second one related to medical device registration variation. Let's start with the first one. Here in the presentation for the first update in Serbia, we'll summarize only the new updates introduced under revision 6 of the Serbian ALIMS guidance for medical device registration submission. So the previous version was the revision 5. It was issued on June of the last year, so almost 1 year apart. It was issued on June, but this revision 6 was issued on February, so less than. And one of the main updates in this revision 6 is the implementation of a new authentication system for the ALIMS medical device e-portal, which is called or known as e-portal MS. So starting from March 2nd of this year, the users must access the system using an electronic identity account or a qualified digital certificate. So this replaced the previous credential-based login system that relied mainly on the username and the password that were issued and by the authority after submission of the consent form. So before they were the authority was used to provide the credential after the submission of the consent form, but now the system is completely different. So it's introduced also a completely new organizational role called access administrator. The appointed administrator becomes authorized to manage company information, responsible persons, and user account with the ePortal MS platform on behalf of the organization. So this is a significant operational update because company now need to formally designate an administrator an administrator responsible for the population. Another important update concerned the consent documentation process. The consent form still needs to be downloaded Alim's website, but the updated guidance now specifically emphasizes that the consent might be digitally signed as proof of the applicant's electronic identity. And compared to the previous version, the process is now more integrated with the new EID and digital certificates authentication model. Moving to the medical device registration variation update. Here we summarize also only the important updates introduced in the new version, which is the version 17 of the Serbian guidance for submission of medical device. So one important update in this version concern the manufacturer name or address changes. So in the previous version, manufacturers were required to provide a declaration, including the implementation timeline for updating all related documentation, such as the declaration of conformity, the IFUs, the packaging, and the certificate. But in this new version, the requirement was simplified. The guidance now only requests a manufacturer's statement regarding the change itself, without specifically requesting implementation timeline details and all the other things. So we also see that in this version, it has expanded and clarifies the examples of changes considered like notification only variation that do not impact device safety or performance. And the guidance now provides clearer examples, such as graphical redesign, text rearrangement, addition of foreign languages, logo modification. So, this will help, of course, manufacturers to better distinguish between base changes and administration updates. So there you can find a lot of example in the guidance, and it's well and very detailed and well presented in this new version. Now moving to our third country, which will be Sri Lanka. Here we'll review update regarding reliance pathway for medical device registration and orthopedic implant and instrument sets. So we will summarize the new reliance pathway that was announced by the authority. So the notice that was issued in October of last year, and it will become effective immediately. So the pathway, it's explained that the pathway would apply to, of course, to both medical device and IVD, and we'll see how that it's the more details about this reliance pathway in the next slide. So the authority defines 3 possible eligibility criteria for application of the reliance pathway. The first one, the product may qualify if it is registered in the country of manufacture and that country regulator is recognized as an NMRA reference. Second, the product might qualify if it is registered in the country of the legal manufacturer and that regulator is a recognized reference by this Sri Lanka authority. And the third one, even if the actual manufacturer nor the legal manufacturer is located in the reference country, the product may still qualify if the device itself is a recognized reference. So we have seen that it should be from the country or the legal manufacturer from a reference country, or the product registered in the reference country, even if the manufacturer or the legal manufacturer are not from a reference country. So these are the three cases. So even if the pathway simplify and accelerate the review process, the notice clearly state that all other regulatory requirements may remain applicable. These include the fees, of course, the labeling obligation, the administrative procedure, and the post-market obligation and the responsibility. So here the applicant submitting a new application should inform the accepting officer if their application qualify for the reliance pathway. For application already submitted, company may still request reliance evaluation by sending a supporting evidence to the authority by email if they meet, of course, the eligibility criteria. So in both cases, either new application or applications that are already under processing. So in our second update in this same country, Sri Lanka, will review the new instruction from the authority for submission of orthopedic implant and instrument set application. So one of the major updates introduced by the authority is mandatory specialty separation. Application for orthopedic implants and instruments can now include only orthopedic products. And products from other surgical specialties such as oral or maxillofacial surgery, neurosurgery, etc., they cannot be grouped within the same application. So only within the same application, only products for orthopedic can be grouped. So it was grouped by specialty. And the authority also introduced a category-based application structure. But each application may cover only one implant category, together with the corresponding instrument system used with that implant type. The guidance defines multiple implant category. You can find the whole list in the guidance, but we can mention for example, the adult plates and screw system, the intramedullary nerve system, the pediatric implant, etc. So this means that manufacturers with the large orthopedic portfolios may now require multiple parallel submission instead of one combined dossier like before. This is in Sri Lanka for the orthopedic. So in the same guidance, another major operational updates concern technical evaluation requirement. The authority states that during technical committee review, suppliers must provide relevant implant samples and the complete associated instrument set. So this material may be physically inspected for quality evaluation, compatibility assessment of the implant system also. And this means that manufacturers should prepare for physical review of their product during the evaluation process. They also introduced updates regarding the requirement for re-registration of already registered orthopedic products. So all renewal submission must now follow the new orthopedic submission framework, even if that like products already in market, they have been registered in the previous structure. Now, during the renewal, they must follow the new orthopedic submission that we just explained by So if the implant or instrument design product must be submitted as a completely new regime. If no design changes, of course, as usual. Now, moving to the fourth, not country, but in this case, region, in the EAEU, we will review the medical device manufacturer inspection. So here we'll summarize the new methodological recommendation that were issued by the Eurasian Economic Commission regarding inspection of medical device manufacturing activity within the region, within the Eurasian Economic Union. So the recommendations were adopted under the recommendation number 6 in April 7 year, last month. And the main objective was to create an unified and transparent approach for inspection of medical device manufacturer and quality management system across all the region. So the guidance organizes inspection into 5 major quality management system process areas. These include design and development, manufacturer and final inspection, post-market and customer-related activity, corrective and preventive actions or CAPA, and document and record management. So the inspection framework includes 26 detailed checklist tasks covering these processes. These checklists help a lot to organize the inspection. So the recommendation introduced a risk-based inspection methodology. So, of course, the number of processes and checklist tasks evaluated during inspection will depend will depend also of the manufacturer KMS scope and whether the activity are outsourced also. So, and of course, high-risk classes or high of medical device are expected to undergo a very deeper and more detailed inspection compared to the lower-risk classes of medical devices. The manufacturing section introduces detailed expectation regarding process validation and production controls. The inspectors are expected to evaluate validated processes, outsourced suppliers, sterilization activities, traceability system, cleanliness management, and environmental control. And the guidance also provides a special inspection rule for outsourced sterilization provider and emphasizes evidence-based validation for sterilization. It's very detailed. Straighten the expectation regarding post-market surveillance and complaint management. And so manufacturer must maintain systems for collecting and analyzing safety and performance data, investigating complaint, reporting adverse, and updating risks are identified for manufacturer and the region area. In the CAPA section, it focuses on effectiveness of corrective and so inspector will evaluate whether manufacturer properly investigate the root causes, assess design and process changes, control non-conformity product, and implement effective safety notification procedure. So this guidance specifically links CAPA activity with risk management and product safety obligation. And finally, require manufacturer to maintain complete and controlled documentation supporting the QMS and medical device compliance. So inspectors will verify availability and validation and verification record, labeling documentation, instruction of use, of course, conformity evidence, and risk management documentation. And we should say that also the guidance also emphasizes document control and change management procedure. That was for the region. In Estonia, our fifth country today, 9, the medical device and appliances database known as EMDDB update. So we will present the update regarding this database. This here, so we will summarize the announced update of the Estonian authority about this database. So the updated database version will become available on July 6th of this year, after a slight delay intended to ensure a smoother and more reliable transition. The update is mainly driven by the alignment with the European Union Medical Device Regulation and increased integration of the EUDAMED and improvement in usability for both applicant and authority. So one of the key objectives of the new database version is to simplify data submission processes. The updated database, or AMDDB, will rely much more heavily on data already available in EUDAMED. This should reduce the duplication of submission and make database management easier for manufacturer and authorized representative and distributors. So this updated system introduces like a simplified mechanism for updating the existing database entry. Previously, different modification may have required separate submission. Now, under this new version, company will be able to submit device data changes, documentation updates, related modification, all together through a single notification process. And another operational improvement concerning is concerned with distribution or distributor management. So if a company only adds a new distributor to an existing device entry without making additional modification to the product, the update will now be automatically approved. And the new version also increases transparency. So documents previously invisible only to authority will now become publicly accessible. This includes European Declaration of Conformity certificate and statements related to system and procedure packs. And one of the most significant regulatory changes introduced in this announcement concern Estonian manufacturer and authorized representative. So because EUDAMED becomes mandatory from May 28th of this year, tomorrow in 2 days, the current obligation to notify placement of medical devices on the market through this new database, this update, like Estonian database, will no longer apply. However, this exemption does not apply to custom-made medical devices because they are not registered in EUDAMED. So for custom-made devices, the national notification obligation under the Estonian Medical Device Act will continue to apply in the old way. In Tanzania, we'll discuss an update related to disposal of expired and unfit medical products. Now, many countries are developing or making more clearer or giving more details about the disposal way of the many of the medical devices that are either expired or have some issue. So this here will summarize the TMDA press release issued on April of this year regarding disposal requirements for expired and unfit medical devices in Tanzania. So this press release highlight the TMDA concern regarding illegal activity involving expired and unfit medical products. According to this notice, some distributor and seller were relabeling, repackaging, and altering expiry or manufacturing dates before placing products back on the market. So this notice reminds a stakeholder that expired or unfit medical devices must be formally reported to the TMDA and disposed of within 90 days from the expiry date. And it establishes a specific compliance deadline in the press release. So all distributors and healthcare facility were instructed to ensure disposal of expired or unfit medical product no later than May 31st of this year, in 5 days. They announced also that spot inspection will begin after the disposal deadline. So company found storing expired products or keeping products beyond the allowed 90-day period or violating disposal rule may face legal proceeding, permit revocation, or additional regulatory sanction. The notice also addresses a common distribution practice where distributors request retailers or clients to return products approaching expiry date. So the authority directed company to stop this practice immediately, and instead, these products must be segregated, safely stored, reported to the authority, and disposed of within 3 months according to the existing regulation. In Kenya, we will review an update related to regulation of medical device software. So, the new Kenyan guideline is a new Kenyan guideline on regulation of medical device software that are also called or known as MDSW in Kenya. In February of this year. The guidance adopts a broad definition of medical device software. So the framework will cover standalone software and the software cloud-based platform, mobile application, and AI-enabled medical software. And the definition includes software intended to diagnose, monitor, or treat, or support healthcare decision-making. And the document also emphasizes that regulation is function-based rather than platform-based. So the guideline introduces an extensive technical documentation requirement for the software registration. So the manufacturer must provide software development lifecycle document, software architecture, testing and validation report, risk management documentation, cybersecurity evidence, and clinical evaluation data. So this guidance also requires software versioning system, traceability mechanism, and lifecycle maintenance procedure. The cybersecurity also is one of the most important section of this guideline. Are expected to implement secure by design principle, vulnerability monitoring, patch management, etc. All the requirements related to cybersecurity. And they also introduced expectation for software bills of material, ongoing vulnerability, or surveillance throughout the software lifecycle. They introduced detailed regulatory expectation for AI-enabled medical devices. So the must provide information regarding the dataset transparency, also retaining controls and post-market monitoring of AI performance. They establish also a strong expectation for clinical evaluation for software medical devices. So the manufacturer must demonstrate clinical association in the device and accept multiple evidence sources, including literature, clinical guidance, comparable software products, and clinical study. So the clinical evaluation is also expected to continue post-market. That was related to the regulation of software medical devices in Kenya. In Ecuador, the update is related to the ARCSA 2026 technical regulation for medical devices. So we'll summarize the technical registration or the technical regulation for obtaining sanitary registration, control, and surveillance of human-use medical devices. This regulation replaces the previous one of the 2016 framework. It adopts a broad and modern definition of medical devices. And now medical devices are defined according to intended the definition of that we are used to see in different regulation. Now it is clearly defined in our legislation. An important modernization within the regulation is that also explicit inclusion of the software as medical device. So they define software and medical device intended for one or more medical purposes without being part or of a hardware medical device. So the framework also introduced machine learning medical devices referred to as MLMD. They introduces two registration pathways, a general registration and a simplified registration. So the simplified process is based on recognition of approvals issued by high surveillance regulatory authority that are members of the IMDRF Management Committee. And this approach may facilitate also, of course, faster access for devices already approved by internationally recognized regulators. The regulation places strong emphasis on quality management system and manufacturing control. Manufacturers are expected to maintain ISO 13485 certification, manufacturing quality system, and conformity assessment documentation. The framework also requires proper traceability and oversight of manufacturing site and related operation. Finally, the regulations strengthen Ecuador post-market surveillance framework. So ARCSA may conduct inspection, quality control, techno-vigilance activity, and adverse event investigation. The authority may also suspend or cancel sanitary registration when products no longer comply with regulatory requirements or present health risk. And now we move to our last country, Malaysia. We'll review briefly 4 updates. So it is related to designated medical device. I think most of you have heard about that. It's an important update known as Order 2026. It was officially come into force, will officially come into force on June 2026, in a few days. The main purpose of the order is to formally classify several aesthetic use technology as designated medical devices. This includes multiple category of laser devices, HIFU devices, and liposuction devices. So the order specifically lists several laser technology now classified as designated medical devices. This include Alexandrite laser, diode laser, erbium laser, etc., as you can see in the list. And they specify also the wavelength associated with each technology. They specifically designate high-intensity focused ultrasound, or as I said before, HIFU devices as regulated medical devices. Approved intended uses include skin rejuvenation, wrinkle reduction, skin tightening, fat reduction, and pigmentation. They officially classify liposuction devices as designated medical devices. The intended purpose listed is removal of localized adipose deposits together with other manufacturer-defined aesthetic indication. So the order has important implications for a manufacturer and regulatory affairs team to work. The company may now need to confirm device classification, ensure medical device registration compliance, review labeling and intended use claims, and align technical documentation with medical device regulatory requirements. So it's a big change. A second update in Malaysia is related to import permits implementation updates. So the import permit system was introduced to strengthen import control and custom monitoring for medical device imported into Malaysia. The framework links medical device import to designated tariff and HS code under the custom order, and it will act for registered medical devices. One important clarification repeatedly emphasized is that the import permit does not replace the medical device registration requirement. The manufacturer must still maintain valid NDA registration for products marketed in Malaysia, but the import permit is an additional shipment level authorization requirement that applies separately from products registration. Now, this originally it was mandatory. Implementation was scheduled for January of this year, and under the revised timeline, the full mandatory enforcement will now begin on July of next year, 2027. So the authority also prepared user manuals, guidelines, and importer support materials for system users. But before mandatory enforcement began, the MDA introduced a voluntary submission phase starting June of this year. So during this period, stakeholders may voluntarily use the e-permit system and familiarize themselves with operational workflow. This So this transition phase is intended to support smoother implementation before the mandatory deadline for the next year. Um, the announcements provide also operational applications, and standard processing time is approximately 3 working days after payment confirmation. So for urgent shipment, such as overnight road shipment or temperature-sensitive product, the authority may expedite the processing within 24 hours. So the announcement define application fee for the new framework, and the import permit application cost like 130 Malaysian ringgit per submission, which is equivalent approximately to 33 USD. And during the transition period, the MDA also announced that a temporary processing fee waiver of up to all the fees, it's waived, although annual e-permit submission fees still apply. Yeah, it's already 47, but I will go very fast on these two last updates. First, the one related to products classification. It is a new version of the guideline. Main update in this version is the formal introduction of a separate renewal application process for products classification. The update in this version officially divides products classification activity into a new application and renewal application. So it's clearer lifecycle management process. And it introduced transition from framework from renewal application covering the period from 2025 to 2027. During this transition period, the renewal application for product classification will be processed without any fee, and they mentioned that a new process may be amended in the next year. So applicants must now submit supporting documents similar to those required for new application, including these documents. So it's more structured renewal assessment process. Yes, that was about the classification product. And for conformity assessments approved by a recognized country, here, this is a circular that was issued in September of last year, but became effective immediately. I think it's an important document, which its main purpose is to establish a policy framework allowing Malaysia of this guidance. And thank you, and thank you for being scheduled. Like I can accept one question if there is any quick question. Okay. So thank you so much for being here, and hope to see all of you in our next RegTalk for June 2026. Thank you all.